Oh, yo, peace, world. This is Kamon Freeman, Angry Black Man in Therapy, representing We Act Radio, and also congressional candidate for D.C. delegate. Joined here at Legacy Sessions Studio in Adams Morgan in Washington, D.C., with another illustrious guest. This is Dr. Rhonda L. Hamilton. She's a mental health advocate, but she also is a former D.C. Mayor candidate who wants to set the record straight. So let's start there before we get into mental health and your work and your journey as that. Please tell them why you felt the need to set the record straight with your title to that.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you, Kamon. This is awesome. I know that at least, 6 years, I was doing the math. About 6 years ago, I showed up at We Act, and you extended such a gracious opportunity for us to speak on our then events in the community. Hashtag remains the same, hashtag mental health matters. Long before there was a pandemic, there was an interview with We Act Radio, so I thank you very much. We had a very in-depth conversation. I'm setting the record straight because, our dear D.C. that we love, especially east of the river in Ward 8, this is an interesting time for those of us that are on the ground and those of us that are in leadership. I had a very interesting conversation with an individual that said, "Oh, Miss Rhonda, didn't want to bring this to you, but I heard that you were paid to get in the race." I thought that was interesting. And because I know you, I didn't want to foster any confusion or drama. And I said, "Oh, no. Please, when you have folks that show up to you with that type of nonsense, clearly they don't know me. Don't, shun them the opportunity of getting to know who I am. Call me." Because that person needed clarity. I am a D.C. Ward 8 until I die.
Well, I hope you thanked him because it's very rarely that people will be up front and confront you with information that they find questionable. They usually just don't question it and pass it along, and then that way it continues to grow and gain momentum. I've been a victim of that several times, but I appreciate the few people who have had the wherewithal and the good moral backbone
Yes.
to come and approach me with questionable information. Because this is what it is. Information is new currency.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes, it
it's
is.
important. So now, in terms of your mental health advocacy, we want to talk about the work that you're doing, and a lot of issues is at play right now. We have Unity Healthcare about to be on strike. I think they have already voted for that
the
strike.
authorization, yes.
So let's start with there, because Unity Healthcare has been a great advocate for better health in Washington, D.C. We have a lot of health disparities, in terms of life expectancy from Georgetown to Anacostia, to the mere fact that they're still cutting people's feet off like Kunta Kinte with these dialysis centers, and then how many
Yes.
diabetics that we have,
Yes.
which all of it is completely avoidable. Let's start there. Unity Healthcare is going on strike. What is this about, and what do people need to know?
Well, yeah, and I want to reference something to you. When you do the work and you're real on the ground, people feel protective. And I want to just go back to that comment that, of course, I thank folks, but people hear something about you that they know isn't true, then they're going to go into a protective mode. And I want our families, our community members to understand that we can learn to agree to disagree. And so this Unity Health Care crisis is something that is near and dear. As a mental health advocate, we've been on the ground doing the work, and what we realize is that many of our marginalized and our incarcerated individuals, as well as our homeless individuals, are facing we already have a healthcare disparity in the nation's capital. What does that mean? There are too many families, especially in marginalized communities, that don't have access to quality, comprehensive health care. You talk about the Kunta Kinte reference in terms of us losing our limbs. We know that there is a food desert, and we understand that many of our citizens have processed diets. And so for Unity Healthcare, what they've been providing in our community for many years, as far back as 1985, it started out as healthcare for the homeless. But now what's happening is that, just as what we're seeing in corporate America across the board, whether it's dialysis, high blood pressure, you name it, we're seeing in this healthcare dynamic that the folks at the top, the executives, the corporate folks, are starting to run these facilities as assembly lines. They're taking all the money, and then they're leaving the folks that really care, the passionate providers at the bottom, trying to care for our people who are ripe with many ailments. And the reality is that Unity Healthcare has not been able to escape an executive mismanagement of funds. Much of what we like to say we see in our local government, but we'll get there. That's another conversation. But what's happening is that Unity Healthcare has saw in the last at least 90 days and upwards about 40 physicians leave. And when you talk about continuity of care, what does that mean in communities of color and marginalized understandings? Building relationship with your doctor, having the luxury, because it should be a right, but the luxury of being able to know that if you've got a cancer diagnosis, if you are plagued with dialysis and having to deal with that, that you can trust the doctor that's helping you to understand that. And that's so important in communities of color because we understand statistically, especially from a mental health standpoint, that we don't see or receive or gain access to the type of comprehensive care understandings that we need, because usually it's an economic issue, and then obviously we have to deal with the corporate enslavement of systemic presence. So the reality of Unity Healthcare right now is that we're in trouble. We're in trouble. The union, the doctors decided to unionize back in December, I believe it was, so that they could fight these corporate understandings. We've had doctors with Unity Healthcare that were administering care in the jail, and they felt unsafe. We had executives who, again, this assembly line process where they want them to see upwards of 25 to 27 patients a day. And when you talk about building a relationship with your doctor, can you imagine showing up for your appointment, you're dealing with cancer or some other ailment, and the doctor doesn't have time to really hear you out because they've got to clear the lobby of what's going on? And that's what Unity is dealing with. Many of their healthcare facilities are empty. They say they're ghost towns. So there's a lot going on.
A lot going on.
A lot
Indeed
going
it is.
on.
Martin Luther King Jr. says that of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane.
It is. It is.
Unity Healthcare is near and dear to my heart because they were one of the first sponsors of the Black Love Festival that we did for a number of years. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary in 2022 at Fort DuPont Amphitheater, the largest event of the summer series. But when we was first starting out, we was the largest annual AIDS mobilization in the city. We was testing more people for AIDS than any other calendar day of the Department of Health.
Yes.
Okay, and we did that for 6 years running. And it was made possible because of Unity Healthcare.
Yes.
And of course, all the AIDS mobilization, shout out to all the organizations that had mobile units that came out. But Unity Healthcare was a sponsor. And then we saw them lose funding as they was going, as years passed by, and they could no longer
Yes.
do that work anymore.
Yes.
But now we know why, because there was a change of guard,
Yes.
change of ownership, and now they're running it as a profit-driven
Yes.
thing. And that's the nucleus of the problem of the healthcare in America. Is why we don't have free healthcare in this country like every other industrialized
that's
nation
right.
does provide healthcare. And in terms of cutting people's feet off, like Kunta Kinte for dialysis amputations, it's completely unheard of in Cuba. That treatment, they have treatment available that prevents it, but they won't allow it in America.
Absolutely.
Because it's to their profit advantage to continue to commit these health crimes. So there you have it. Unity Healthcare is about to go on strike. Thank you for the work you're doing there. Do you have the contact information for Unity Healthcare for people to follow up and support the impending strike?
Well, I love that question. What I would offer, I don't have Unity Healthcare's direct because there's so many points of reference. There's Carrie with the union, the UAPD, Union of American Physicians and Dentists, but then you also have Kate Sugarman, who's one of the very spirited physicians over there, one of the veterans that's been in the system. But what I can tell you is that on Labor Day, which I know we'll get to that, there's a human and civil rights protest down at Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. At 11 a.m., and there will be a representative from Unity that will be speaking and representing this issue. Why it's important that we educate our community, because many in the community don't know that this is going on. Many are calling and not getting an answer and don't realize why that's the case. And as with anything, we have to put pressure on these big corporate types to help them to understand that, there is a way that we can fight back. So to get in touch with Unity, I would say we want to invite folks from your platform to come on down on Labor Day. It's a holiday. Come down and meet the reps.
Labor Day is not just for partying. Labor
That's
Day
right.
was just what it is, labor.
That's right.
You're supposed to put in some work. This is the people who brought you the 40-hour work week, and the people that brought you the weekend. That's what you need to recognize. And, you know, the six corporations control most we see here and read don't touch these issues. They don't discuss about these issues. They don't acknowledge the healthcare crisis that's happening right here in the nation's capital. As you see it right here on your screen, September the 2nd, excuse me, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Freedom Plaza, are you ready to fight for justice for all of DC's residents? This is something that needs to be on your agenda. Let's get activated. Michelle Obama said to DNC, do something. Don't wait around. Do something.
That's right.
And this is something that you could do rather than just having a cookout. All right. Now, before we go, there was another issue that was near and dear to your heart that you've been representing, and I was talking about the circulated bus drivers. So let's close out with that because you are a busy young lady.
I am. And I want to clarify something because, you know, you have these cynics, especially in our town, who are black and white, but we need to understand that as a mental health advocate, we came out all those many years ago, or almost a decade now, to raise the consciousness around the discussion about what mental health really is. There are levels and layers to that conversation. You and I have spoken on that on many occasions. What we see in the district is a myriad of issues, whether it's our workers who are distressed and experiencing high levels of anxiety because a contract that was awarded by a mayor who is not being accountable, not offering transparent governing, offering 5-year contracts, and then 8 months later coming back and saying, okay, well, we've got to cut that out. And the reality of what that did for many of the workers, talking about the DC circulator workers who were dedicated through the pandemic, dedicated when the mayor had issues with needing to offer cooling buses because many of the housing units, which we are in crises with our houses and failing HUD's inspection. So we had to find a backup plan to be able to keep our citizens, our seniors and our children cool during the summer because the slumlord realities of what they're living through had not been addressed. And so the DC circulator workers reached out. You know, as mental health advocates, we get all kinds of calls, and I find myself challenged a lot of times with having to remain from a confidential standpoint because obviously you see Miss Rhonda and, you know, somebody here has mental health. Well, of course someone's dealing with something. 1 out of 5 shows us statistically from a national standpoint that somebody in the room has got some challenges, but does that mean that you're not supposed to be able to deal with that from a dignified standpoint? And so what we're trying to do is to raise awareness around these issues that are imposing levels of trauma and unnecessary exposures to toxic stress, worrying about your job, worrying about how you're going to take care of your families because of a government decision that happened just like that. And many of these workers are not educated about the council, the legislative branch, the executive branch. They don't understand all of that. They just understand that they had a job. They were offered a 5-year extension. Many of them had children going off to college. Many of them themselves had invested in higher living understandings, whether it's buying a home or being able to purchase a car. You know, just the basic things. And to find out that your 5-year stability has been ripped from under you, you know, it's traumatic. And on top of that, many of them have worked there for 18 years, and the reality of being 50 and 60 years old, trying to reinvest or you know, get into another occupational skilled field that's going to be able to help you take care of your family and give you the kind of confidence and stability that you should have at that age. It's interesting, and so we just want this district government to understand that there has to be accountable governing and there has to be transparent operations. And so we are throwing our hat in the ring to say, look, there are other accountabilities that you have to answer to beyond this political nonsense. This is a mental health concern for us, and many of the district citizens and workers are not able to get to healthy, are not able to experience mental wellness because we've got unscrupulous practices going on in our governing, and so we don't like a bully. I'm a hometown girl. We don't like bullies.
All right, so you're here to hear. We're talking about from healthcare rights to workers' rights, challenging all the inequities and injustices in this system that ain't right. So far from being this DC being the most dangerous city for a black woman to give birth in all of America, to the average white family having 81 times the wealth of the average black family. These are things that need to be addressed. This is, we're talking about inequities that should be intolerable, and a system that is untenable. This is not a self-sustaining situation, and we need to address it. We need to challenge it, and we need to do something about it.
Right.
This is We Act Radio. We do shout-outs before we get out of here. Dr. Rhonda L. Hamilton, What do you want to say?
Well,
and give me your website.
Absolutely. First and foremost, the Labor Day protests, human and civil rights protests, if you yourself feel that you're dealing with something and you are afraid to speak out or you're worried about being retaliated against, you can join us. That does not have to be a concern for you. You can go to www.healthydcandme.org and register. There's a streamer going across that allows you to click on the first streamer and you can register and come on down. And please, if you need help, please make sure that you reach out. You can use this same website to do so. I want to acknowledge all of my community mamas that are stepping to the plate, that are stepping up and getting their community members registered. Many times in our communities, when you come from communities where we come from, it's not cool to speak against the status quo, and that's another reason why we stand in the gap and we wave the flag and we say, come on, come to safety, come to healthy. It is time that members in our underserved communities gain access to the types of resources and understandings that will help them to change their lives. And so www.healthydcandme.org. And I simply want to acknowledge and thank all of the community members that are brave enough to embrace this new understanding of having access to healthy.
I'd like to personally thank and give a shout out to Dr. Chapman for being a fearless advocate for the health inequities in this city, and also all the Unity Healthcare workers. You said 40 workers have left.
40 workers. Now let's talk about that.
That is an exodus.
40 physicians have left.
40 physicians have left Unity Healthcare over the working conditions there. That is an exodus.
Yes.
And because they expect the remainder to handle the same workload that they had when they was at full capacity.
And guess what? I want to amend that. In the last 30 days, 43 staff were fired a day before a union vote. Talk to me about that.
So there you have it. This has been Kimon Freeman, Dr. Ron Hamilton. We are talking about health inequities and health injustices and worker conditions here in the capital of the United States of America. You would think that if this democracy they want to so vaingloriously celebrate, that they will at least get the 68 square miles of the nation's capital right, that we would have the best of everything. Should be the shining city on the hill, but yet and still we have one of the greatest disparities of inequity anywhere in the country.
I will say two things. The standards are absolutely too low. And being the nation's seat of governance, knowing that folks around the nation and the globe look to us to understand that we would have our act together, it is time to take care of business, sir.
It is time to do something. This has been Kimon Freeman, WEAC Radio. Dr. Ronnie Hamilton, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
We'll see you hopefully on Labor Day, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Freedom Plaza. Do something.
Yes.